Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new series of mine called Retro Movie Spectives, the show I go and look back and review classic movies from the 1980s, 1990s, and the early 2000s. This is something I've been wanting to do for quite a long time now, as I am a fan of a lot of movies outside of my interest for FNAF. And while I do have my FNAF reviews to review anything FNAF related and the worst things in the FNAF franchise ever, I feel like I've never really had an opportunity to share my thoughts on something that I actually enjoy, so now is the time to finally make it happen. Anyway, on with the video. So, outside of my liking for Five Nights at Freddy's and trains, I am a fan of two genres, sci-fi and horror. I have watched a lot of sci-fi themed and horror themed TV shows and movies in my time. However, I'm sure that a lot of you have noticed that for the past couple of years, horror movies have been utterly terrible, with lazy tropes and poorly written stories and characters. So poorly written, in fact, that they don't even feel like horror movies anymore. Kind of like that genre on YouTube that for some reason thinks every analog TV channel and a VHS tape is haunted or whatever. That genre that got oversaturated by children that think putting in cryptic words equals scary. Although recently, I found a horror movie that is the complete opposite of today's horror movies. A horror movie that is not only a horror movie, but a sci-fi horror movie. A horror movie that I think is probably the most perfect contender to fix the horror movie genre. It's called Event Horizon. So what the hell is Event Horizon? This obscure science fiction horror movie from the late 1990s that hardly anyone has heard about. Well, in order to understand a little bit about this movie, here's some historical background. Event Horizon is a movie made in 1997 by Paul W.S. Anderson, a British film director who is famous for his work on science fiction movies and video game adaptations such as Space 99 and Resident Evil Apocalypse. The story of this movie is as follows. An advanced, light-speed-capable deep space research vessel called the Event Horizon has appeared in orbit over Neptune after it had disappeared 7 years ago in 2040. And now it's up to the ship's designer, Dr. Weir, Captain Miller, and his crew of the Lewis and Clark to save the Event Horizon crew, only for them to find out that the Event Horizon crew are all dead, and the starship has been possessed by a dark force from hell, killing nearly all of Captain Miller's crew, destroying the Lewis and Clark, and turning Dr. Weir into an evil demon. And now it's up to Captain Miller, Lieutenant Stark, and Cooper to escape the Event Horizon before Dr. Weir succeeds and takes them to hell. This is a movie I've been really getting into lately, and I have been wanting to make a video about this for quite some time. Seriously, I've watched this movie on my VHS for God knows how many times at this point that it feels like a fucking curse. And oh boy, I have a lot to talk about. In this first episode of Retro Movie Spectives, I will be doing a full review of Event Horizon, what I love about the movie, its troubled production, and why I think Event Horizon is a good contender on how we can fix the horror movie genre. This is going to be a big one, so use the timestamps to skip around to anything particular in the video that you're more interested in. Now then, without further ado, let's begin. So what do I love about Event Horizon? There are quite a lot of things I love about Event Horizon that it could take hours explaining why. But for the sake of this video, I will only explain my big favourites. So, the first thing I like about this movie is the scare factor. I honestly love that the movie just straight away gets into the horror. There are no long, happy, clappy scenes introducing the characters. We get a jump scare 2 minutes in, a simple introduction to the characters, another jump scare, and then boom, it's all spooky from here. I love it. Staying on the topic of horror, Event Horizon is all in all a cosmic horror movie. Cosmic horror, or Lovecraftian horror, is a horror genre that focuses on the horror of the unknown rather than gore. And Event Horizon takes that concept really well. Yes, there is gore and jump scares in Event Horizon, but that's pretty much used just for shock value and nothing more. Unlike other horror movies where it just relies on gore and jump scares for the scare factor, Event Horizon uses astrophobia and the fear of the unknown for the scare factor.
Tiffany, open the door for me.
That's one of my fucking neighbours. Shut the fuck up. Astrophobia is the irrational fear of space and stars. And astrophobia and the fear of the unknown mix together perfectly. Think about it. You're on a spaceship in space with no one else on board, so far away from Earth that you couldn't be able to contact anyone. That is enough to scare the absolute shit out of someone. And Event Horizon does a phenomenal job at it. From witnessing the crew seeing all of these terrifying events happening on the ship, to seeing them constantly debate whether what they're seeing is a hallucination or it is indeed real, all whilst they're on board a giant spaceship with no one around, far away from Earth, is such a terrifying and relatable scenario. So it really did a good job with its setting and scare factor. Still staying on the topic of horror, what I also love about Event Horizon is the atmosphere. You see, in my opinion, what makes a movie or a story or a game perfect is that the creators gave a shit. What I mean by that is that they knew exactly what kind of game, story, or movie that they were tasked with making, and they went balls out to make this perfect. And Event Horizon is definitely a great example of that. The production crew of Event Horizon knew exactly what kind of movie they were tasked by Paul Anderson to make. A science fiction horror movie. And they did such a good job at making it clear to everyone who would watch it that this is a scary as fuck horror movie. You see, there's a reoccurring issue I see when I play or watch modern horror games and movies. They don't feel like horror games or horror movies at all anymore. The environments are dull and vibrant and unoriginal. The characters also are very unoriginal with poor writing. And the soundtrack doesn't really give you the chills like they used to in older horror games or movies. But Event Horizon, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. Everything in Event Horizon just feels so creepy and chilling. The industrial and uncomfortable look of the Event Horizon's interior and exterior, as well as the Lewis and Clark's, the gothic and terrifying design of the gravity drive, even the soundtrack that was composed by the late Michael Kamen and the British electronic music group Orbital. Still gives me chills when I listen to some of those tracks. That orchestral music being remixed and combined with the electronic music just mixes together like fine wine. The production team definitely gave a shit when they were making this, and oh boy did they show it. Okay, I think that's enough cocksucking. Now of course, nothing is completely perfect, and Event Horizon is definitely not at all perfect. The movie does have a lot of problems as well as its golden nuggets, but there was a particular reason for this, which we will talk about now. Event Horizon is all in all an impressive sci-fi movie. I think I made it clear at this point. But surprisingly, this was a movie that didn't do very well on its cinematic release. Despite the movie eventually gaining a small form of popularity equipped with a cult-like following thanks to home media releases, Event Horizon unfortunately did not see the success its creators had originally hoped. It performed terribly at the box office, and it received a lot of criticism from critics. The reason for this has to do with its production. If you watched Event Horizon, you would know that this movie has a few issues. Most notably, the movie has really sloppy and unfinished editing, and the writing of the characters made them look dull and very vanilla, something that the actors also took note of, which I'll cover in a bit. The issues found in Event Horizon was not done deliberately, as the movie had a very troublesome production. The reason why is that the studio behind Event Horizon, Paramount Studios, wanted to have a hit film before the release of Titanic in August 1997. Basically, more dosh. So the movie had an incredibly tight production schedule, with editing for the movie taking only 6 weeks, hence why the editing of this movie turned out to be really bad in some scenes. But what's really surprising is that Event Horizon was originally planned to be even longer, lasting around 2 hours and 10 minutes rather than the 95-minute long movie which we currently have. But when the first cut of the movie was shown to Paramount and Anderson though, it turned out to be incredibly bad and unfinished. It had very weak acting, most of the visual effects weren't even done or finished properly. Paramount Studios also disliked it too. So much so in fact that according to the test audiences, this cut of the movie was so incredibly gory that it made members of the test audiences faint and some even threw up. Paramount then forced Anderson and the production team to cut the movie down to 95 minutes and to remove nearly all of the gore from the movie. So that's how we unfortunately ended up with the current version of Event Horizon. And that, unfortunately, is what caused Event Horizon to turn into a massive flop at the box office. Sam Neill, the actor who played Dr. Weir, was really vocal about these changes. In an interview, he said, "I thought when we were making it, we were making a really good science fiction film. This really scary horror and sci-fi film. It was a little bit disappointing to me when it came out because it was cut so fast and all the suspense had gone from it. What's at the other end of that dark corridor? What lurks there? All of that stuff had gone, and that had been filmed very carefully. I would have thought that if it was a longer film and care and attention was paid to those moments of suspense, I think it would be a much stronger film." There was plans to release a director's cut of the movie with the DVD release, but unfortunately the footage from the 2-hour cut wasn't properly stored and some of the footage even went missing. And apparently, I shit you not, it was all stored in a salt mine in Romania. Damn, someone must have really not liked that footage. So instead, there was a special edition DVD release of Event Horizon with 1 deleted scene and 2 scenes that were extended. Some of the lost footage did manage to make their way online though. However, they have no sound and the picture quality is incredibly poor. Many people have tried time and time again to recreate the 2-hour 10-minute cut of the movie, but most of the footage is still lost as of recording this. And to make it even worse, the lost footage is actually considered illegal now, because there was one scene where the Event Horizon crew were having an orgy. And I'm obviously not going to show you that. So, as unfortunate as it may be, we will never ever see that director's cut. Most of the deleted scenes are on YouTube. They are not hard to find, so if you're curious then feel free to have a look. But I will say though, watch at your own risk. Okay, so now it's time to get to the moment you have all been waiting for. Why do I think Event Horizon, of all horror movies, a movie that is plagued with quite a few problems, is a perfect solution to fix horror movies? Well, you see, I don't think the movie itself is the solution to fix the horror movie genre. I don't think every horror movie onwards should be about haunted spaceships from hell or anything like that. I more rather want horror movies to play with the same themes from Event Horizon to make them better. You see, one thing that really pisses me off when I watch horror movies and anything in the entire horror genre as a whole is that the creators seem to shy away from making things scary, just so they can appease an audience full of brain-dead kids and wussies. To which to that I say, fuck that. Horror movies are supposed to scare the shit out of people. It's what they were made to do in the first place. Let's say someone decided to make a steam train but have it run on electricity instead of coal. It wouldn't be a steam train because it isn't powered by steam, it's just an electric train that looks like a steam engine. And that's the same thing with today's horror movies and games. A bunch of steam trains that is not powered by what makes them scary. And that's where Event Horizon comes in to fix that. Event Horizon uses a ton of gore in this movie and it was still a popular movie. Staying on the topic of gore, what I see a lot of horror movies do is that they have to rely on gore and cheesy tropes only to scare people, rather than making a clear and coherent story. Aside from what people think, horror is not just about making things bloody to scare people. You can also scare people with a coherent story, an atmosphere, and themes that can be used right. What a lot of people tend to look over when they are critiquing Event Horizon is that the movie uses the fear of the unknown to scare people rather than gore and jump scares. The fact that the villain is not revealed in this movie makes it more terrifying. Yeah, Dr. Weir was technically a villain, but he's not really the real one here. He was just the ship's creator that unfortunately happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time more than anything. And he barely gets any screen time when his evil self is out and about. Even the Event Horizon is not the real villain, it was just a ship that got possessed by an evil force. So you then wonder, who the fuck is the real villain here? And that makes you pretty uncomfortable. And again, the fact that this movie takes place in a spaceship far away from civilization in space with no one to contact just makes it even more terrifying, with the fact that there is someone or something pulling the strings here in this movie. And that's how I think Event Horizon can fix horror movies and the horror genre in general. Horror movies, books, and games should stop catering to younger audiences. And they should use themes such as the fear of the unknown, phobias, etc. as the scare factor, and have gore to supplement that. But do I see any of this happening anytime soon? No. The way I see with the direction of what movie studios and game developers are going for when making anything horror related, I think they're just going to be the same horrible mush that they are now. So in conclusion, I love Event Horizon. If you're into science fiction, horror, and Warhammer 40k, then this film is definitely for you. The sets are incredibly well done, the scare factor is top notch. The movie is quite a train wreck to watch in some places, but I think when you start knowing the undeserved production hell behind it and what the movie could have been if it weren't for those meddling studios, it is a pretty disturbing movie. If it wasn't for Paramount Studios constantly pushing the production crew to get it done quickly, then it would have been a whole lot better. Other than that, it is a pretty awesome movie. If you haven't watched it in your entire life, then please do, and if you don't, I'm coming to your house. So yeah, that was the first episode of Retro Movie Spectives. I'm so sorry that this video took so long to finish. My life unfortunately got in the way a bit. And I do realise that this video was not as good as I wanted it to be, but regardless, I hope you enjoyed it. I definitely did. Even if I did have some production hell behind it, ironically. It was a nice breather for me to make a video about something I actually enjoyed for once, rather than ranting about something terrible for 10 minutes or something. If you enjoyed this video, then let me know if you want to see more stuff like this in the future, and I'll make it happen. Be sure to like, share and subscribe, follow me on Instagram and Threads, and I shall see you all in the next video.
This time I see with clarity. Did you want me to leave? You need to open your eyes up. You need to see nice dreams. You need to see nice dreams. This time I see with clarity. Did you want me to leave? You need to open your eyes up. You need to see nice dreams.